sadaqah, not hibah, not gift. Because the ownership has been transferred in all those forms. But for Waqf, it remains attached to you, and as long as it benefits people, the reward will be going to you. So, for the sake of Allah, is what the basis of Waqf. So, like I said yesterday, I often say you can use non-permissible income to create Waqf for general charitable causes. And it is not permissible for you to benefit from this Waqf in any manner. So I think we have debated that yesterday. As we are going to see, one of the principles of Waqf is that whatever property you want to make as Waqf must be halal. It must be pure. It must be halal. It must be pure. And it must belong to the Waqf. It must not have any encumbrance. We know what we call encumbrance in law. There must not be any issue on it. If you have a land now, there is a conflict of title on it. You have not sorted that out. You know, let me make this as Waqf. No, you cannot make liability as a Waqf. Whatever you want to make as Waqf must be an asset. Therefore, the best English translation, even if you want to translate Waqf in English, at best is for you to translate it as Islamic endowment system. Islamic what? Endowment system. It's not enough to say endowment. Is the Islamic endowment system. More importantly, it is better we just use the word Waqf in our expression rather than saying you are translating it. As lawyers, we have some terminology that we don't actually know their meanings, but we know that they have explained to us, and we use them freely without necessarily looking for their translation. And I believe it's like that in every profession. Doctors will have their own terminology that they use freely without necessarily looking for the English translation. So, therefore, we should not be bothered about saying we must translate. Once we understand how to explain what Waqf means, that is enough. So, any question, contribution on that? Because this is supposed to be a change, not a lecture. Okay.
Okay. I think they can smell my voice. I want to ask that you said that whatever item that you want to make as Waqf,
Yes,
should be halal. How do we now know an halal thing?
Okay, now I will say that being halal is not the responsibility of we as Waqf manager. That is the responsibility of the person who wants to make Waqf himself.
What are the
Conditions for him to meet.
Okay, we will just like
Our own is not about now asking, where did you get your money? Did you get it from halal, whatever? No, we judge by whatever that is openly.
That's like when you say a non-Muslim that performs Hajj does not have any reward.
Yes.
Because you know one of the conditions that has to be a Muslim.
A Muslim.
A practicing Muslim.
Now we are going to talk about the non-Muslim participation in Waqf. Yeah? Now. Doctor.
all right.
I hope that is clear, sir.
Okay, it's not the business of the officer.
It's not the business of the operators. We as Waqf operators, it's not our business. The only thing is when people come, you want to enlighten them. You let them know that whatever you want to use as Waqf should be something that comes from Allah. Because at times people may be now be enlightened about some ill-gotten wealth that they are now using for means of just disposing They now say, okay, let me use the option of Waqf to dispose it. That will not be for Waqf. You can dispose it by giving it out to people, not even as sort but just free gift. Sorry, doctor.
Same question.
Okay.
Let's hear from doctor. You talk.
Okay.
No.
Mine is just to be sure that I understand what you taught us in the last slide. Basically, what you taught us has to do with attributes of work.
No.
Number one, you mentioned subsidy. When you mentioned the phone issue.
Yes.
Uche is giving them at 100 and then you are giving at 50.
Yes.
So there's subsidy, number one. Number two, there's preservation of the original property.
Yes.
Number three, surrendering of the property to Allah.
Yes.
Number four, investment for years after. I will interpret this as sadaqah to jariyah.
Yeah.
Perpetual.
Then the properties must be halal as well.
Yes.
So these are the attributes that I got from what you presented now.
Thank you very much.
And then if you ask me as a layman to even define it, I can attempt to define it by saying that it is an Islamic special purpose vehicle for managing sadaqah to jariyah. That is number one.
Yes.
Then here comes the question now. The question is, we talked about halal now. As it is now, they said whatever it is that you own that is not halal, when you die, your children or family will inherit it.
Yeah, they can inherit it.
They can inherit it, but they don't have any problem. The consequences, you bear the consequences still. That when you go, you will still be account for it.
Yes.
What about with what?
Now, that is a very good question. For Waqf does not accommodate that. You know why? Because Waqf still, the benefit of Waqf still comes to the donor.
You'll be punished and you'll be getting the
reward. So you cannot eat your cake and have it. That is why Waqf will not tolerate you using haram property to do Waqf. It's just like you want to do a kind of cover-up for just like the very good analogy Imam gave yesterday, that when Imam Ghazali was asked that why is it that we are talking about this haram. So now you have enlightened us to know that haram is not good and we want to change. But you are still saying that if we still give that to Allah, Allah will still not take it from us. Then I gave an example that if we have a wife that is the breadwinner and the source of the income she's bringing home is prostitute. Even though you don't have any means you are eating from that, will you be happy with what she's bringing home? Definitely one will not be. So for Waqf is a condition. We are still going to talk more about that in other slides.
Still based on the consequences of using non-permissible. Yes. The consequences of using non-permissible income. The issue is that after explaining the position of the cleanness of the Waqf itself, and somebody who has a questionable property or estate still decided to channel it to Waqf, what is the position of the operators now? What would they do with it? We know that he doesn't have any reward, but still he wants to commit it to Waqf. After all explanations, he just do that. So what is the position of the Waqf managers now?
Now, recently, globally, this issue that we are talking about now is not generating a lot of debate in the Waqf sector. And that's now made us to see that beyond the Waqf products, the Waqf operators will also need to develop a kind of a tabarru'at or hiba product that will cater for this kind of thing. When they bring to you, if you have a product, hiba product, a kind of they call it al-hibatu al-mawkufa. Al-hibatu al-mawkufa, preserved gift. You know, one of the attributes of a gift is that it's an outright transfer of ownership. But in the hibatu al-mawkufa, it is gift, but because it does not meet the requirement of Waqf, you get it? It does not meet what the requirement of Waqf, and that is the requirement of purity of the property. It was not there. So they cannot give it to the Waqf manager as al-hibatu al-mawkufa, a preserved gift. He will know that that gift, even whatever benefit, he may be perpetuating and operating and even producing benefit like Waqf. But the reward, no reward will go to the donor. Because he himself knows that he just does not have any means. I think this is what Ayofi was supposed to talk about here. Not Waqf, but it can be what? Al-hibatu al-mawkufa.
Sorry, I'm just thinking ahead. You have to bear with me. This is how I am. You know, I'm just beginning to see the challenge in India. Indeed. Especially in Nigeria. If somebody asks me what is the problem, what do you think is the problem with this Waqf thing? I would say that people will say that this is going to deny them the opportunity to inherit things from their deceased whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, you are saying that they are not going to inherit it.
We are coming to that.
Okay.
We will address all those fears.
Okay.
All those fears. In fact, at a point in history, it was identified that when people had the challenge of property confiscation, it was Waqf that they resorted to in order to preserve their property. And as a matter of fact, we have what we call family Waqf, whose benefit will be for the family members.
And the original owner.
Yes, and the original owners. So in that regard, the fear of denying anybody inheritance or whatever will not be there. So I hope up to this stage we are clear. Okay. Now, what are the Sharia legal basis and fiqh sources of Waqf? You'll be surprised that when we begin to doing our Waqf advocacy, you will encounter well-recognized Islamic scholars that will be telling people that don't mind them what they are bringing is bid'ah. There is no basis for it. And then where is the basis for what they are campaigning for? So that's why as experts, we must be well equipped. You know, up till now, we still have some scholars who advocate against Islamic banking. We have some of them who in the past, when they did not understand Islamic banking, they have advocated vehemently against it. But later, when they now come to understand, they review their position. So we need to understand the legal basis for Waqf. Number one is Quran. By reference, there is no direct basis, legal basis for Waqf in the Quran. But that is not a problem for anybody who understands how Sharia works. In the Usul al-Fiqh, we are made to understand that the sources of Sharia is not just the Quran. So wherever you find in any of the sources, it's still valid as law, as long as they don't go contrary to the what? To the Quran. Then also, we have Even in the Quran, law in the Quran, legislation is in two forms. We have the direct legislation, Akimu Sola wa Atu Zakat. That is direct. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. That is direct. Why we have so many other legislation that are not direct in the Quran? So it is not peculiar to Waqf if you don't have any direct basis for it in the Quran. Now, again, do we have any verse in the Quran where the term Waqf even appears? There are only two verses in the Quran where the word Waqf appears. And that's where Allah is saying, Waqifuhum innahum mas'ulun. Stop there. They have questions to answer. There is another similar one also. We are last still repeating. Waqifuhum innahum mas'ulun. Apart from those two verses, there is even nowhere where the word Waqf appears in the Quran, even for another meaning or another usage. But by reference, we have so many verses in the Quran that support the doing of Waqf. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله فلتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد. The popular verses on Friday. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم. So يا أيها الذين آمنوا. So al-ihsan is something that does not have a definite definition. The only thing is, it must not be something that is against the do's or don'ts of Allah. The definition of al-ihsan, even in the hadith, what is bad? Mahaka fi nafsika wa karimta an yattali alayhi nas. Inna al-halala bayyin wa inna al-harama bayyin. So now all of these are encouraging us to do good. And Waqf is indeed a good deed. So they serve as basis for us to support Waqf. So by reference, the Quran serves as the basis. Then Sunnah. In the three phases of Sunnah that we have Sunnatu Qawliya, Sunnatu Fi'liya, and Sunnatu Takririya. That is the Sunnah by deed, by saying, and by approval, confirmation. In all of these circumstances, we have strong basis for Waqf. The hadith reported by Abu Hurairah, which is in the Sahih Muslim, where the Prophet said, إِذَا مَاتَ الْإِنسَانُ انقطع عنه عمله إلا من ثلاث. And one of them is what? Sadaqatu Jariyah. It's an authentic hadith. And scholars have interpreted Sadaqatu Jariyah to mean Waqf. So we have the hadith reported by Ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar, that Umar, the hadith is also in Sahih Muslim, that Umar acquired a property in Khaybar, and the property was the most valuable to him. He now went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that I've acquired a property. Advise me on what I should do with it. The Prophet said, in shifta habasta watasaddaqa bithamariha, that if a law preserve that property, now do a sadaqah with its benefit, with its proceed. So this is well established. Ibn Umar now said, Umar now made that property as waqf, stipulating that it should not be sold, it should not be inherited, it cannot be gifted, it cannot be mortgaged, it must be waqf, and that whoever manages it is entitled to also benefit from it. And that's why we say waqf is a means of employment creation. It's a means of income generation. It's a very strong tool of poverty alleviation and eradication. We also have the case of the hadith, many others. Then practically, the Prophet himself did waqf. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, there is a book written on the waqf of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. And that is why when Abu Hanifa initially opposed the validity of waqf, but when he now traveled to Mecca, because he was living in Iraq, so he did not believe, because there's another hadith that said that la habsu ba'da miraf. So he now interpreted that to mean that how will you say somebody has done waqf, just like the question doctor was asking, that there is no waqf after the ayah of miraf, because that waqf will be conflicting with miraf, inheritance. But when he now went to Mecca, he now saw, they are now saying this is the waqf of Uthman, this is waqf of the Umar, this is waqf of Prophet. And I said, oh, if this could be the case, which means I was wrong in my interpretation. So practically the Prophet himself did waqf. One of the notable waqf of the Prophet was a property given to him by a Jew. The Prophet had a friend who was a Jew. And that Jew, some people said he accepted Islam, some said he did not accept Islam. But in one of the wars, battles, he volunteered to follow the Prophet to the battle. So he now said that in case he doesn't come back, even if he come back, that he gives all the certain garden he hold to the Prophet. The Prophet now made those gardens as waqf. So the Prophet himself did waqf. Then also by another practical example is that Abdullah ibn Jabir ibn Abdullah reported in an authentic hadith that there was no one among the companions of the Prophet that had means to do waqf except he did waqf. Which means every one of us, if you want to go about the emulate the lifestyle of the companions, is required. The hopes of us that we also do our work individually. We should have one work for the other that we leave behind. Then ijma, there is no controversy. There is no one among the scholars or the schools of Islamic law where they said waqf is not recognized. Even Abu Hanifa, that initially opposed it, later changed his position when he was confronted with fact. So there are these that no hapsu after inheritance. He later changed it. That the hapsu that the prophet was talking about was the one that they used to do during the Jahiliyyah period, and which was essentially meant to deny people inheritance. So, doctor, one cannot use waqf with the intention of denying people inheritance. So, if the intention, like as professional now operator, somebody now come to you that I don't want my children to inherit my property and all that. So for that, I want to make it as well. You have to enlighten him. That intention itself will nullify the waqf. You do waqf not because you will still leave something for your heirs, but you also do something that will benefit you, because whether you like it or not, latest by 10 years after your death, your heirs will forget you. They will forget about you. And they will not be doing anything that can bring, even their prayer that can benefit you. How many children will remember to pray for their parents after death? So that is why we said it's an investment for the year after. But if you have done a property as waqf, you will know that nobody will tamper with that to deny you the reward.
Sir, there's a question here, sir.
Yes.
Please, can the waqf be contested by the children of the...
Now?
No. Can the waqf be contested by the children? Maybe you are giving something, a property as waqf. Then some years later, the children now come together and say they want to collect that waqf.
Not possible.
They want to... Can it be contested?
Yes, we are coming to that. You see, this slide we have now is about 150 slides. But it's not something we can complete today. So all those questions will be addressed. We have people putting there the dispute on waqf. Who can even represent waqf, the interest of waqf? Then how many years can they? We have what we call statute bar or statute of limitation. That is, you have a time limit within which, even if you have a claim against waqf, there are years that you are allowed to do that. Once those years are passed, the court will not listen to you. So all this as professional, we need to know that. Yes.
Okay. You spoke my mind. I wanted to ask the same question you asked.
Okay.
But I knew that you were going to give that answer. but